I know you remember this. When we left Odysseus and what's left of his crew at the end of chapter 6, they thought they were going to escape from the Cyclops. But the Cyclops is now sitting in the mouth of the cave, so they can't get by him. I don't know what their plan is, but we'll find out. This is the Odyssey Chapter 7. And here we have the set of vocabulary words to go with Chapter 7. Bind, bound, means to fasten together. Lash, tie together with a rope. Fleecy, soft fibers. Grieve, feel sad about a death. Fury, very angry. Jeer, making fun of someone. Mock, laugh at someone. Soothsayer is a fortune teller. Ram, a male sheep. Mutton is meat from a sheep. Bear or boar, carry or support. Wool, sheep hair or fur. Shriek is a high-pitched scream. Slab, large flat piece of stone. Taunt, say something to make angry. Plea, beg for a favor. And prophecy is a prediction or forecast of the future. Chapter 7, The Curse of the Cyclops. Hour after hour, Polyphemus waited at the mouth of the cave. Hour after hour, Odysseus wondered how he might save himself and his men. Near dawn, his gaze rested on the fat, fleecy sheep. There must be a way to use them, he thought. Odysseus stood up silently. He quickly chose 18 of the largest sheep. Then, using long, young willow branches, he silently bound the sheep together in groups of 3. When this was done, he lashed each of his men to the belly of a middle sheep. When all his men were concealed by the curly white wool of the sheep, Odysseus chose the mightiest ram for himself and hid beneath it. Dawn crept into the cave. Just as they did every morning, the sheep began to bleat and move out of the cave, heading for the mountain meadows. One by one, Odysseus's men passed smoothly and secretly past the Cyclops and out of his reach. But when the mighty ram began to move out of the cave, the giant stopped him and stroked his wool. Odysseus held his breath as he hid beneath the ram's belly. "Ah, my old friend," Polyphemus said to the ram, "why do you move so slowly this morning? You are always the first to run into the flowery meadows or the bubbling spring. You are always the first to come home at night. Do you move slowly because you know that your master has lost his sight? Do you grieve for me? If only you could speak and tell me where no one hides. I would catch him and bash out his brains." The ram bleated impatiently, and the giant let him go. The ram and Odysseus moved out of the giant's reach and beyond the cave. As soon as they were a safe distance away, Odysseus slipped out from beneath the ram's belly. He quickly untied his men. He silently urged them to hurry. Then the men drove the giant's flock down to the water. The Greeks who had waited by the ship rejoiced to see their friends alive, but they fell to weeping when they learned of the 6 who had been brutally slain. "End your grieving now," Odysseus ordered. "We must put out to sea at once before the Cyclops discovers we are gone and comes after us." Odysseus and his men drove the Cyclops' sheep onto their ship. Then they pushed off and rowed quickly through the calm gray sea. Once they were far away from shore, Odysseus stood up in the boat. "Polyphemus!" he shouted. "Polyphemus!" In a moment, the monster appeared at the edge of the cliff. He bellowed with rage when he realized Odysseus and his men had escaped. "You should have thought twice before making a meal of my men," shouted Odysseus. "See how Zeus has punished you?" The blind giant answered with a shriek of fury. He tore a slab of rock from the high cliff, and with all his might he hurled it at the Greeks. The rock crashed into the water in front of the ship, and a wave rose like a huge mountain. It scooped up the Greek ship and washed it all of the way back to the Cyclops Island and hurled it onto the beach. Odysseus grabbed a long oar and pushed the ship back out into the water. "Row! Row!" he shouted to his crew. "Row for your lives!" The Greeks madly rowed their ship out to sea. As they moved far beyond the shore of the blind giant, Odysseus could not help jeering at the beast again. "Polyphemus!" he bellowed. His men begged Odysseus to hold his tongue. "Do not taunt the monster. He will sink our ship for certain." But Odysseus paid no attention to their pleas. His anger and pride were so great he could not stop himself from making a terrible mistake. He told his true name to the giant. "Polyphemus!" he shouted. "If anyone asks you who put out your eye, do not tell them it was no one. Tell them it was Odysseus, king of Ithaca. Odysseus, the great warrior and raider of cities. He was the one who blinded you." "Alas, the prophecy has come true," boomed the giant. "Long ago a soothsayer said that a man named Odysseus would blind me. I had been waiting for someone of godlike strength. But you are a weakling. Come back so I can give you a gift to prove my hospitality, to please your Zeus, so he will heal my eye." "Heal you?" Odysseus shouted mockingly. "Neither Zeus nor I wish to heal you, monster. I only wish to send you to the land of the dead." The giant lifted his hands and prayed to his father Poseidon, god of the seas. "Hear me, father," he thundered. "Put a curse on Odysseus, king of Ithaca. May he never reach his home alive. If he must, may he lose his way, his ships, and all his men. May he find only sorrow and trouble on his journey." The Cyclops then picked up a rock even bigger than the first and hurled it at Odysseus. But this time the rock landed behind the ship, and a mountainous wave bore the Greek ships toward the Goat Island, where the rest of the fleet waited. Odysseus and his men were welcomed with great cries of relief, but once again joy turned to sorrow when the Greeks learned how the giant had brutally slain their friends. As the sun went down, the Greeks feasted on mutton and wine. When night came, they lay down and slept soundly on the sand near the shore. At dawn, Odysseus ordered his men aboard the ships. They all took their places. Then with swift strokes, the Greeks left the Goat Island and headed across the rolling gray waves. As the fleet of ships glided into the unknown, Odysseus looked about worriedly. Would the sea god Poseidon do as his monstrous son had asked? Would he punish Odysseus for blinding Polyphemus? And if so, how and when? The end of The One-Eyed Giant.